to Punkten podcast, David.
Thank you. Glad to be here again. Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm so happy you want to talk to me again. It's been a while since you were on the show. It's been about a year and a half, I think. It was season 1, episode 12.
Wow.
And then we talked about your story and about your work and a little in general.
Mhm.
And we've kept in touch, and I get your newsletter every week.
Oh, cool.
But would you tell the listeners a little about what you've been up to since then?
Well, so I talked to you during the pandemic then.
Yeah, it was the fall of 2021.
Yeah, so okay. Well, I got COVID.
Yeah, me too.
But I've been working away. I came out with another book called Flip It Like This, a collection of my best of cartoons.
Yeah, which I bought, of course.
Oh, cool. Thank you. And we're having fun with that. And I'm writing more books. I've launched my own YouTube channel. I've gotten serious with it. And so I'm making videos and I'm doing paintings. Many Swiss love my paintings, by the way. And just doing podcast interviews and stuff like that. My wife and I are having fun with our life and going to visit our kids when we can and going on trips and just being in love. And things are good.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to talk about two things in particular. And one of them is that you wrote a book some years ago now that's called Till Doubt Do Us Part, When Changing Beliefs Change Your Marriage. And I know you wrote it from your own experience. So would you please share some of what made you write the book and what it's about? And after that, we'll mention some of the chapters.
Yeah, so maybe for some of your listeners, maybe some things are lost in translation. In English, we say, till death do us part in the wedding vows. And I changed it till doubt do us part, when changing beliefs change your marriage. Because when I left the ministry in 2010 and the church as a result, Lisa and I went through a really difficult time for a few years. We didn't know how to be married anymore because up to that point, we pretty much were partners in ministry together, pastored the church. We loved the church and had a great leadership team, and the community was wonderful. But when we left the church, it was almost like we couldn't figure out what was the glue that held us together anymore, because all of our friends and all of our activities and all of our meaning and purpose in life and sense of destiny and activities and friendships and everything was centered upon the church. So that when we left that, we lost all that. And she went to university to get her nursing degree. I, started working full time on NakedPastor, and it was like she had her life and I had mine now. And our beliefs had gone through real huge changes, and we didn't know how to be married anymore. And it was scary at times. It was really hard at times. We separated a few times. Like it was, we weren't sure we were going to make it. And so as a result, she finally convinced me that we needed to talk to somebody. I talked with some therapists, some coaches, some counselors, some friends. And after a lot of difficult conversations and difficult counseling sessions and so on, after a few years, we finally realized that the glue that actually held us together was love. and not compatibility of beliefs. And that's what we rebuilt our marriage on, our relationship on, was that mutual love and respect. And so I just started writing about that on my blog, sharing that on social media, doing cartoons about it, and finally realized I had enough content that I could make a book out of this.
Yeah.
Because I see it happening to so many other couples where they start questioning their beliefs, changing their beliefs, or going through what we call deconstruction, and their marriages blow up. And sometimes it's okay. Maybe they weren't meant to be together, or maybe only for a time. Some people get married because they felt they had to, or were pressured to, or were more naive and didn't understand what they were getting into, or whatever. And some marriages people go their own way, their separate ways, and that's sometimes good and healthy. Other times I think it can be avoided, and a healthier, stronger relationship can endure out of that kind of traumatic change that happens. So yeah, the book is helping a lot of people figure out how to move forward, even though in their relationships, even though their beliefs are changing.
Yeah. One chapter is called "When You and Your Spouse No Longer Agree." And you say that you and Lisa used to agree on most things until you didn't. And I guess that must have been really, really tough, like you said.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the person who appreciates when my husband and I don't agree on everything. But it has taken a long time and hard work and many years.
Yeah.
So we can talk about things without it having to be a win or a lose deal, as it was in the beginning. But we're trying to understand each other and also be content with the fact that we don't agree. But and I do understand couples who just can't take it anymore and choose to go their separate ways. Now, I think maybe it also has to do a lot with personality types. What do you think?
Yeah. So, the way you talk about your relationship with your partner is something that isn't achieved easily. Like, it takes a lot of personal growth.
Yes.
And it takes a lot of growth in a relationship to get there. But I see Lisa and I now, my wife's name's Lisa, we now see beliefs as sort of like the river in front of my house, although right now it's frozen, but in the summer there's a bunch of ripples or waves on the top, but deep down it's the Kennebecasis River.
Yes.
And even though it's changing all the time, it's still the Kennebecasis River, but it can look different every day or every hour, with the ripples and waves, and sometimes as smooth as glass. And so I see beliefs like that that's just the surface. And so it's like with Lisa, she's still the amazing and beautiful and sexy and smart and funny and wise girl that I met when she was 18 in Bible college. But the surface, the ripples, the beliefs change all the time. So that's one of the big things we learned, is that I love the believer, not the beliefs. Let's say.
Right.
I love the thinker, not the thoughts necessarily. So, we used to think naively and immaturely, we used to think that the only way we could really get along is if we sort of believe the same things. Well, that not only makes a very difficult relationship, it makes a very difficult world, because if that's how we're going to divide the world, which is happening today, unfortunately, then it creates a very divisive place to live. And so we need to get to that place where we see all these beliefs as many, but the oneness of who we are as human beings at a deep and fundamental level, that's where it matters.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we've come to the same place too, where, you know, we can sort of listen to each other with wonder and curiosity and respect, even though they might think way differently than we do on certain issues.
And
Yeah.
agreeing on everything sounds also like a very boring marriage to me. So.
Well, yeah, I remember many years ago, you know, there was a couple that Lisa and I really loved and appreciated, and they were kind of like mentors to us. And they said, you know, we never argue,
Oh
ever.
gosh.
And at the time, I thought, wow, that's a dream. That sounds great. But they ended up getting divorced, and I wondered if it's because, you know, somebody was keeping silence. You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Another chapter is called Deconstruction, Marriage, and Moral Confusion. And that's a pretty personal and vulnerable chapter where you talk about feeling numb and not caring. Would you say something about that chapter?
Yeah, so if anybody who's listening has gone through the trauma of questioning your beliefs, you know, it's one thing to question, you know, was the earth really created in 6 days, or was Jonah really swallowed by a whale, or was there really a flood, or did Jesus really walk on water? You know, we can question those things and they don't really devastate our world. But what if you get to that place where you wonder if everything was a hoax, that you were duped the whole time, that is there even a God? You know, that kind of a devastating existential kind of traumatic questioning of your beliefs. You know, then that you can feel numb, like you kind of go into a coma. And it's very debilitating and can really paralyze you. And it's just one of the stages of that process where you're in denial, or you're angry, or you're depressed, and it's very overwhelming. And I remember after I left the ministry, now I've been sort of theologically deconstructing for decades, but when I left the church, that was a double whammy, as we say over here. It was like a punch, another punch to the head, where, okay, I was questioning my beliefs. Now I was questioning my relationship to the church and religion and everything, like, and friends and all that. It was like the perfect storm. And I felt really, really numb. And I felt like running away, escaping from everything. I even wondered if I wanted to be married anymore. And she hadn't done anything. She was still the same wonderful person, but I just felt like I needed to escape all responsibility or something. And and another weird thing happened too, and I'm honest about this and vulnerable about this too in the chapter, is I was no longer in the church. I was no longer in the ministry. So I was no longer being watched all the time. And people didn't care how I lived my life. Like, nobody was watching. I wasn't in the fishbowl anymore. And I thought, what's stopping me from sleeping around? Like, what's stopping me from having an affair? What's stopping me from leaving Lisa? Like, who's going to say anything? I'm not going to lose my job. I've already left my job. You know what I mean? Like, so it was like, just like, how do I live my life now? When I no longer believe, you know, that I should just stay married because you just should stay married. What if I don't believe that anymore? And so, yeah, that was a real scary and very difficult time for both Lisa and I. Very sad. But I made a decision. I think I share this too. I made a decision, even though I had people tell me, yeah, separate, divorce, go find, whatever, do what you want. And I thought, this is probably the worst time to make a decision. I want to wait till there's some clarity. I'm confused right now, and maybe I shouldn't make a decision while I'm confused. I'm glad I did that, because now Lisa and I are happier than we've ever been, and it's the best marriage we could possibly ever imagine. But we wouldn't have got there if I listened to other people, or if I did make a rash decision during a confusing, dark time.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to mention one more chapter. Now, there are so many chapters, but I want people to buy your book, so we'll just take one more. And that is communication is key. And here you give some great advice about communicating about your deconstruction with your loved ones. And they're all valuable. And I especially love the one about having drinks and talk. Your Scotch and Bailey's nights.
Yeah.
So can you mention a few of these advices that maybe were especially helpful to you guys?
Yeah. That when anybody asks me what's the key to your marriage, I would have to say communication. Well, first of all, though, there's a magnetism. Like Lisa and I are attracted to each other, and that's something that's beyond explanation.
Right.
But communication, the intentional part it's communication, talking things out and understanding each other, and just talk. And yeah, so I've switched from Scotch to bourbon now as my preferred choice. And it even sounds better, bourbon and Bailey's.
Yeah.
But we'll just pour a drink, sit by the fire, and just talk and understand each other. There's something very soft and opening about that. And it's also very sexy, where it's like you're exposing yourself. You're becoming vulnerable with another person that you're attracted to, and it's there's something about the love and even the romance of knowing another person at that level. Yeah. In fact, the Bible says, and Adam knew Eve, meaning, there's something intimate, intensely intimate about that. That's not just sex, it's communication and interconnecting. So that's my biggest advice is talking things through and communicating.
Yeah. You don't only talk about your beliefs, then you talk about like everything.
Yeah, we talk about everything. We might even gossip a little bit about other things, or she might talk about her work, or I'll talk about what's going on. But you need to get to that level where you're talking about your vulnerable things, like your fears and your desires and ambitions, and maybe there's some things you're ashamed of, or whatever, where you really expose yourself and try to be as honest as possible. There's something very healthy about that for you, but also it's something that really bonds you with another person who cares. And so yeah, that's first, second, and third is really communicating.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, and we'll talk about our kids and, everything.
Yeah. It's great. So the book is Till Doubt Do Us Part, and I will put links in the show notes where you can find it. And now we're going to talk about something that you recently posted on YouTube, and you've been writing about it too. And it's about the hurt you can feel when you lose your community, even if that community was abusive.
Yes.
So please tell me, what made you post and write about this now? And what's it really about?
Yeah, so I think one of the things I'm known for is my honesty. That's why I'm called Naked Pastor.
Right.
It's naked meaning I'm going to be totally honest and upfront and unadorned and raw and real. And so one of the um, things I felt I wanted to share was, why do I miss something that I left
Right.
so much, And I left the ministry and I left the church. And so I've even had people saying, well, what are you complaining about? You're the one who left. And I kind of compare it to, this is probably a little bit, maybe it's inappropriate, I don't know, but it works for me. It's kind of like a leg that has gangrene, infected, and it's got to go, or else you're gonna die. You got to get your leg taken off. And they talk about phantom limb syndrome, where you still feel your leg even though it's not there, and you miss your leg. You'd like, even though it was a bad leg,
Yeah,
you
it
still,
could have killed you.
even though it was killing you,
Yeah.
you still miss it.
Right.
And we see the same thing with women who leave abusive husbands, or children who leave abusive homes. There's something about home and something about family and something about a spouse that brought some comfort, maybe, and some level of security and normalcy. And it's okay to miss those things.
Right.
And so both things can be right at the same time. I know some people who've left their abusive husbands, or people who've left an abusive church or whatever, and they're like, that's it, I'm done, I don't care, and they move on with no regrets and no grief and no missing nothing. But most people I know, there's something they miss about it. One of the things that inspired me to write about that and talk about it was, I'm pretty fascinated by people who leave cults and cults. And there were some documentaries I watched a bunch in a row. One was by CNN about a cult in Hawaii. Another one was the Osho one, Wild West, I think it was called. A documentary about that commune. And then there was another commune cult. I forget where that one was, somewhere in America. Well, all three of those were in America, so there you go. But they all three shows interviewed people who'd left the cult, and even though they were seriously abused and really harmed, and they knew it, most of them were in tears because they missed the intensity of intimacy they experienced in that community, the friendship, the fellowship, the support, the love. And I thought, that's totally true. Some people might look at them as stupid. I didn't.
No.
I thought that I totally understand that, because that's the way I feel. Even though it was best for my mental and spiritual health to leave, there's still a lot of things I miss about it.
Yes. And also, I understand you got some responses that didn't really sit well with you. Some people say that, well, then your friends weren't really friends. And
see, I don't understand that kind of dismissiveness.
No.
Like, to say I left the church because it was unhealthy for me, and to say, well, then it wasn't a true church, is that's just excusing the church. And it's the same with saying, well, I left my abusive husband, and you say, well, he wasn't then a real husband, or he didn't really love you, or you didn't really love him. Or to say, I really miss the church. Well, then, what was the one you mentioned?
Well,
people say?
people said that your friends weren't really your friends.
Yeah, your friends weren't really your friends. That's why it hurts. They were our friends.
Right.
If they weren't our friends, of course it wouldn't hurt.
No.
But they were our friends. That's
Yes.
why the betrayal was so real.
Right.
You expect enemies to betray you, and you're not shocked.
Right.
But when a friend betrays you, that's betrayal.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the
And
knife in the back.
exactly. So, you know, a lot of, there's also people who come in and saying, I've never experienced that in the church. Well, hello. Look at all these comments here from all these people saying that they've experienced that in the church.
Yeah.
That'd be like walking into a rape recovery group session and saying, I've never gotten raped. I don't understand why you people feel this way. Like, now's the time to be quiet. Just shut up.
Yeah.
Or it's like going into an AA meeting,
Right.
Alcoholics Anonymous, and talking about red wine's better than white wine.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like, unfortunately, a lot of people aren't trained in how to be empathetic,
Right.
and to hear the pain of other people
Right.
without feeling they have to fix them or correct them.
Right.
Just listen to people and try to get into try to wear their shoes for a moment.
Yeah.
Actually, I just read a book. I think he's Swiss, actually. Johann Hari. His book, Stolen Focus, where he talks about how the internet has, you know, degraded our ability to think and focus clearly. And but in there he talks about, shares some research that shows that people who read fiction are more empathetic, because they actually, when they're reading fiction, they're actually inside the head of another person.
Right.
And they, you know, they start to understand how a person can feel this way or think this way, because they're sort of walking in their shoes where they're struggling, or, you know, whatever. And I thought that was really cool. And I wish more people would read more fiction.
Right.
So they would understand, try to understand and walk in the shoes of people who've been abused by the church, and still miss it.
Yeah.
Because it's real. It's real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get it. Even if you in hindsight can see that it was see the toxicity of it, it still gave you so much when you were in it.
That's right. Yeah.
So, but what made you write and talk about this now, after all these years? Or is it just that you have tried other communities and that didn't feel the same? Or
I haven't tried other communities. I mean, when I did leave the church, I think one of the biggest things people feel is loneliness.
Yes.
And I think that's the biggest pain that people feel when they leave the church. And, you know, I tried other groups, other things, but there's nothing like what the church can offer.
No.
You know, I tried, let's say, like, Toastmasters or a gym, or, you know, some other group, and it just doesn't have the same global offering as the church does.
Right.
The church offers you everything.
Right.
Platter, your friendships, activities, support, babysitters, mechanics, you know, your friendships, your activity circle, everything.
Yes.
It's like a little commune.
Yes.
And for many people, it can be cult-like, that kind of intensity. And while it's good, it's great. But when it turns toxic, it's very bad.
Yes.
And so I feel it's one of my jobs here on earth to help other people through the deconstruction process and through the leaving the church process. And so every once in a while, I feel I need to talk about things that people are going to feel and experience when they leave the church or when they deconstruct, because I want to help them feel better and get to the other side, and maybe help them to understand themselves better. That, because I see a lot of people wrestling with shame over what they believed and what they participated in and what they did and the church they went to. And no, it's okay. You don't need to feel shame. That's just who you were then. And you wouldn't be who you are now unless you were who you were then.
Right.
And it's part of your story.
Right.
And embrace it. And because if we rip that chapter out of your journal, we wouldn't understand you now.
Right.
It's made you who you are. And which is a wonderful human being, and to embrace that. So that's why I talk about things like that, to help people overcome their shame and guilt and everything they've gone through.
To help people do what Richard Rohr says, to include and transcend.
Yes. That's right.
That's a good one. So will you write and talk more about this?
Pardon me?
Will you write and talk more about this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Lots more to come.
Yeah, great. Look forward to that. Is there anything else you want to say about this, or maybe you want to say something about your art?
Yeah, I'm really grateful for the people who are buying my work. It means a lot to me. My paintings, for example, it seems that people like in Switzerland and then in Finland and other areas really love my paintings. A lot of them are kind of northern, kind of Canadian feel, very minimalistic.
You do know that I live in Sweden, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Not Switzerland.
Oh, Sweden.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yes.
It's a very, very common mistake among Americans.
Yeah,
and
no, that's my mistake. I meant Sweden.
Yeah.
And I'm in Canada, and we're more geographically aware than many Americans.
Yes, I know that.
But so there's and then my cartoons are just going everywhere. I'm really happy about that, and I just love the impact that they're having.
Yes.
I love drawing a cartoon. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words.
That's right.
And I do my best to pack as much punch into one cartoon as I can.
You're doing a great job with that.
Thank you.
I know you have introduced Timber.
Yes.
I absolutely adore Timber. Who is she, would you say?
So Timber is sort of an iteration of Sophia. So Sophia, the Liberation of Sophia, my book, there's I drew like 59 drawings of Sophia, and basically she was my inner self, my inner wisdom, my spirit in feminine form, escaping from the confines of religion and the church and so on, and liberating herself. So that is all about that. Now Timber is about this strong female who is taking a stand in the world and making herself known and raising her voice, and healing herself, doing the transcending and the integrating that Richard Rohr talks about. So for example, one of them is she confesses that she is light. I am light. It's called I Am Light, and she's looking at the northern lights. Another one is Everything Circles, and it's her looking at the moon and everything's swirling around in a circle.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is her holding a guitar and saying, "I will never stop singing." And that's part of my story, was when I left the church, I stopped singing and stopped playing guitar. And that was 13 years ago. So I pulled my guitar out again. I'm starting to play again and write again. And so, yeah, it's sort of Timber. She's made her escape. That was Sophia. Now Timber is sort of sounds like this strong, standing like an oak. and she's going to establish her presence and voice in the world.
Yeah. Good.
There's about 8 or 9 of them so far.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Look forward to seeing more of Timber.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, since it's been more than a year since we last talked, I will ask you again this question that I ask my guests. Where do you find pleasure and well-being right now?
Just hanging out with my wife, and if we're lucky, our kids too. Our kids are all over the place. We have 3 grown children. But yeah, just hanging out with Lisa. Where our kids have left home. 2 are in the States and 1 is in a near city. And but when we get together, we just have so much fun. And Lisa and I, we just love hanging out and having some wine together, or bourbon and Baileys, and reading, or just talking, hanging out. And if we're lucky enough to get friends to come over or go out with them, very, very simple things. Just being with other people who love you. There's nothing greater. Yeah.
Good. Well, do you think you'll ever come to Sweden?
I'd love to. I would love to. Yeah, I'd love to come to Sweden sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me know if you are, then we'll get.
For sure.
We'll meet.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for wanting to come back. And I'm sure I'll ask you again.
Please do.
Yeah, and I'll put all the necessary links in the show notes.
Thank you so much. And to all is most of your listeners, are they mostly in Sweden?
I do have quite a few listeners in the States as well, since I have quite a few guests from the States. But most of them, I think, are Swedish, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hi to everybody.
Yeah.
And we'll see you.
Well, keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Monica.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.